Commander Valth of the Corathian Intelligence Division had seen many things in his 40 cycles of service. He had witnessed wars, rebellions, and the occasional diplomatic incident that made him question the sanity of every species in the galaxy. But this was something entirely different, and frankly, it was starting to irritate him. The human female stood in his office, all 1.6 meters of her, looking completely unbothered by the fact that she was about to be sent into what everyone in the facility considered a suicide mission. Her name was Dr. Olivia Grant, and she wore the kind of calm expression that made Valth's secondary stomach twist with unease. "Let me be absolutely clear, Dr. Grant," Valth said, his mandibles clicking with barely contained frustration. "The creatures in Containment Zone 7 are not pets. They are not research subjects. They are weapons. Living, breathing, extremely angry weapons that have killed 17 of our best handlers in the last lunar cycle alone." Olivia smiled. Actually smiled, like he had just told her about a particularly interesting weather pattern instead of describing savage beasts that had literally torn through reinforced titanium doors. "I understand, Commander," she replied, adjusting the strap of her equipment bag. "That is exactly why I am here." Valth's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a Corathian gesture that roughly translated to utter disbelief. "You understand? You understand. Doctor, these are Ravager Hounds from the Kess Nebula. Each one weighs 400 kilograms, has teeth that can puncture battle armor, and possesses an aggression index that makes our own war beasts look like decorative plants." "Fascinating," Olivia said, pulling out a small data pad and making notes. "What about their pack structure? Is there an established hierarchy?" For a moment, Valth simply stared at her. Then he activated his communicator. "Security Chief Rendax, please come to my office. I believe the human has experienced some kind of cognitive malfunction." "I assure you, my cognition is perfectly fine," Olivia said, that infuriating smile still on her face. "I have worked with similar species on 3 different worlds. The problem is not the animals, Commander. The problem is your approach." Oh, now that was rich. Valth felt his crest flare with indignation. "Our approach? Our approach. We are using standard containment protocols developed over 2,000 years of galactic cooperation. What makes you think a single human, who has been in space for less than a century, can do better?" "Because," Olivia said, her tone shifting to something that sounded almost amused, "you are treating them like prisoners, and prisoners tend to get angry." Before Valth could respond, Security Chief Rendax entered the office. The massive Corathian was covered in scars, each one a testament to his many battles, and he looked like he could crush a transport shuttle with his bare hands. He took one look at Olivia, and then at Valth. "Is this the human specialist?" Rendax asked. "Allegedly," Valth muttered. Rendax studied Olivia with the same expression one might use when examining a particularly confusing piece of abstract art. "She seems small. Are you certain she is qualified?" "My qualifications are not measured in size, Chief," Olivia said pleasantly. "Now, shall we proceed to the containment zone? I would very much like to meet these Ravager Hounds."
"I can't believe it. It's true."
Valth and Rendax exchanged glances. In that moment, they shared the universal look of people who knew they were about to witness either a miracle or a horrific tragedy, and they were not sure which would be worse. The walk to Containment Zone 7 took approximately 15 minutes, and with each step, the ambient temperature seemed to drop. Other personnel in the corridor gave them wide berths, and Valth noticed more than a few concerned looks directed at Olivia. Word had spread fast. The tiny human was going into the zone. Last chance to reconsider, Valth offered as they stood before the massive security doors.
Beyond them, he could hear the sounds that had haunted his dreams for weeks.
Growling, snarling, the scrape of claws on metal, and the occasional roar that made the walls vibrate. Olivia checked her equipment one more time. She had refused the standard protective armor, which made absolutely no sense to anyone present. Instead, she carried only her bag, which contained... Actually, Valth had no idea what it contained, and that somehow made everything worse. "I am ready," she announced. Rendax input the security code, and the doors began to open with a hiss of hydraulics. The sounds from inside grew louder, more aggressive. Valth could see movement in the shadows beyond, multiple large shapes that seemed to boil with barely contained violence. "If things go wrong," Rendax said quietly, "we will seal the doors in 30 seconds. Standard protocol." Olivia nodded, still wearing that calm expression, and then she walked through the entrance. The doors sealed behind her with a sound that felt entirely too final.
"Move now!" "Coming, sir!" "What is that?"
Valth and Rendax rushed to the observation window, along with half a dozen other staff members who had apparently materialized out of nowhere because nobody wanted to miss this. What they saw made absolutely no sense whatsoever. The Ravager Hounds had stopped moving, all 9 of them. These massive, terrifying creatures that had been in a state of constant agitation for weeks were now simply standing there, watching the human female who had just entered their domain. Olivia walked forward, slow and steady, her movements fluid and deliberate. She was not showing fear. She was not showing aggression. She was simply there, present, aware. One of the Ravagers, the largest one with a distinctive scar across its snout, took a step forward. Its lips pulled back, revealing teeth that could easily remove limbs. A low growl emanated from its chest, a sound that Valth felt in his bones even through the reinforced glass. "She is going to die," someone whispered behind Valth. But Olivia did not die. Instead, she did something that made every observer question their understanding of reality. She sat down, right there on the floor, cross-legged, relaxed, like she was settling in for an afternoon of meditation in a peaceful garden instead of a containment zone filled with apex predators. The scarred Ravager tilted its massive head, clearly confused. This was not normal prey behavior. This was not normal anything behavior. Olivia reached into her bag, and Valth held his breath. She pulled out a container. She opened it, and even through the observation window, Valth could see her breaking something into pieces. Food? She was offering them food? "This is insane," Rendax muttered. "They are fed twice daily on fresh protein. They do not need her offerings." But the Ravager approached anyway, slowly, cautiously. Its nostrils flared as it scented whatever Olivia was holding. And then, in a moment that Valth knew he would replay in his mind for the rest of his life, the massive beast sat down in front of her. It sat, like a trained companion animal, like it had been doing this its entire life. Olivia held out a piece of the food, her hand steady, her expression soft. The Ravager leaned forward, took the offering with surprising gentleness, and consumed it. Then it made a sound, not a growl, not a snarl, a soft, almost questioning rumble. "What is happening?" someone asked. Nobody had an answer. The other Ravagers began to approach, one by one. Not in attack formation, not with aggression. They approached like they were Curious? Interested? Each one sat as they reached Olivia, forming a semicircle around her. She gave each one a piece of food, spoke to them in soft tones that the observation microphones could not quite pick up, and touched them with gentle, confident hands. Valth felt his primary heart skip a beat when Olivia stood up. This was it. This was when the spell would break, and the violence would begin. Except it did not. The Ravagers stood with her, following her movements like synchronized dancers. She walked toward the center of the containment zone, and they followed. She stopped, and they stopped. She turned, and they turned. Then Olivia did something that made Valth actually press against the observation window in disbelief. She raised her right hand in a gesture that looked vaguely military. A salute? Was she saluting them? The scarred Ravager, the pack leader, lifted its front right paw. The gesture was awkward, clearly not natural to its physiology, but the intent was unmistakable. It was returning the salute. And then, one by one, every single Ravager in the containment zone did the same. 9 massive, dangerous, supposedly uncontrollable beasts stood in formation, holding their front paws up in what could only be described as a military salute to a single human female who barely reached their shoulders. "Someone please tell me I am hallucinating," Valth said weakly. "If you are, then we all are," Rendax replied, his voice filled with equal parts awe and concern. Olivia lowered her hand, and the Ravagers lowered their paws. She spoke to them again, words still too quiet to hear, and then she turned and walked back toward the exit doors. The Ravagers did not follow. They remained in formation, watching her leave with what Valth could only describe as respect. The doors opened, and Olivia stepped through. She looked at the assembled group of shocked observers and shrugged. They just needed proper introduction and clear boundaries. Also, those protein rations you have been feeding them? Terrible quality. No wonder they were agitated. Valth could not form words. His translator implant might have malfunctioned, or possibly his entire brain had short-circuited. "So," Olivia continued, consulting her datapad, "I will need access to the feeding schedules, environmental, controls, and behavioral records. We should also discuss proper enrichment activities. These are intelligent creatures, Commander. Keeping them locked in a bare room with nothing to do is cruel and counterproductive." They saluted, was all Valth could manage. "Oh, that?" Olivia smiled again. "Positive reinforcement paired with structure and respect. Works on most species, actually. Now, about those feeding schedules?" Rendax looked at Valth. Valth looked at Rendax. Somewhere in the facility, alarms were probably going off because the security recordings were going to require extensive review and verification. The human female had been in Containment Zone 7 for less than 10 minutes and had somehow turned 9 savage beasts into an orderly military unit. "I think," Valth said slowly, "I need to file a very strange report, and possibly reconsider everything I thought I knew about humans." Olivia was already walking away, studying her datapad, completely unconcerned by the minor miracle she had just performed. Behind her, through the observation window, 9 Ravager Hounds remained in perfect formation, watching the door through which their new commander had departed. 3 days had passed since the incident in Containment Zone 7, and Commander Valth was developing what humans apparently called a headache. He had filed 17 reports, attended 6 emergency council meetings, and watched the security footage so many times that he could now recite Olivia's every movement from memory. The Galactic Oversight Committee was not pleased. Actually, that was putting it mildly. They were confused, suspicious, and more than a little terrified. Humans had been probationary members of the Galactic Coalition for only 8 months, and already they were rewriting protocols that had stood for millennia. "Explain to me again," Council Director Thrain said through the communication screen, his reptilian features twisted in what Valth assumed was frustration. "How a single unarmed human female accomplished in 10 minutes what our best xenobiologists could not achieve in 3 months." Valth resisted the urge to slam his head against his desk. "Director, I have reviewed every second of footage. Dr. Grant entered the zone. She sat down. She offered food. She established behavioral expectations. The Ravagers responded. I cannot explain it beyond that." "Cannot or will not?" "Cannot," Valth said firmly. "Human psychology and methodology are still largely unknown to us. What I can tell you is that the Ravagers are now calm, cooperative, and responding to basic commands. Our casualty rate has dropped to 0. That alone should satisfy the committee." Thrain made a hissing sound that might have been a sigh. "Fine. But keep close observation on the human. If this is some kind of trick or manipulation, I want to know immediately." The communication ended, and Valth leaned back in his chair. A trick? What kind of trick involved making dangerous creatures behave through kindness and structure? It made no logical sense, which meant it was probably perfectly logical to humans. And that thought was even more disturbing. His door chimed. "Enter," he called. Olivia walked in, followed by Rendax, who looked like he had witnessed something that challenged his understanding of physics. Again. "Commander," Olivia said cheerfully, "we have a situation." Of course they did, because apparently the universe had decided that Valth's life was now a continuous series of situations involving this particular human. "What kind of situation?" Valth asked, already feeling tired. "The good kind, actually," Olivia replied. "The Ravagers are ready for field deployment. I have been working with them on advanced commands, formation movements, and tactical responses. They are exceeding every expectation." Rendax nodded slowly. "It is true, Commander. I observed the training session this morning. The creatures perform complex maneuvers with precision that rivals our elite military units. It is both impressive and deeply unsettling." "Field deployment?" Valth repeated. "Doctor, these animals were brought here because they were deemed too dangerous for any practical use. The original plan was humane termination after behavioral studies concluded." Olivia's expression hardened, and Valth suddenly understood why humans had a reputation for being stubborn. "That would be a waste of incredible potential, Commander. These beings are intelligent, trainable, and loyal once properly bonded. Killing them because previous handlers did not know how to communicate is not humane. It is lazy." The words stung, mostly because they were accurate. Valth opened his mouth to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red emergency lights flooded his office, and his tactical display activated automatically. "Report," he barked into his communicator. "Commander, we have a breach in Sector 12, a frantic voice responded. "Unknown. Hostiles. Possibly pirates. They have bypassed outer defenses and are moving toward the research wing. We have civilians trapped." Valth felt his blood run cold. The research wing housed over 200 non-combat personnel. Scientists, technicians, support staff. If armed hostiles reached them before security could establish a perimeter, the casualties would be catastrophic. "How many hostiles?" he demanded. "Scanning indicates 20 to 30 individuals, heavily armed. Our security forces are mobilizing, but they are 10 minutes away from establishing defensive positions." 10 minutes might as well be 10 hours. Valth ran calculations in his head, trying to find a solution that did not end in tragedy. "Commander," Olivia said quietly. Her tone had changed completely. No more cheerfulness, no more casual observations. This was the voice of someone who had made difficult decisions before and would make them again. "Let me take the Ravagers. We can reach Sector 12 in 4 minutes." "Absolutely not," Valth said immediately. "You are a civilian specialist, not military personnel. I cannot authorize such action." "You can, and you should," Olivia countered.
Your security forces are too far away. Those people do not have time for proper protocol.
The Ravagers are trained, ready, and capable. More importantly, they are already bonded to me. They will follow my commands without hesitation. Rendax stepped forward. "Commander, I hate to say this, but the human is correct. We have no other options that do not result in significant casualties." Valth looked between them, his mind racing through possibilities and probabilities. This was insane. This violated every regulation in the Coalition Handbook. He could be court-martialed for even considering it. The alarms continued to blare. Somewhere in Sector 12, people were hiding, hoping someone would save them. The decision made itself. "Do it," Valth said. "But Rendax goes with you. And I want constant communication. If things go wrong, you retreat immediately. Understood?" Olivia was already moving toward the door. "Understood. Rendax, with me. We need to move fast." Valth watched them leave, and then pulled up the security feeds for Sector 12 and Containment Zone 7 simultaneously. This was either going to be brilliant or catastrophic, and he genuinely could not predict which. The feed showed Olivia entering the containment zone at a full run. The Ravagers immediately stood at attention, sensing her urgency. She made several quick hand gestures, commands Valth had seen her teaching them over the past days. The pack moved into formation instantly, following her out of the zone with military precision. 4 minutes later, Olivia, Rendax, and 9 Ravager Hounds arrived at the entrance to Sector 12. The security feed showed the hostiles had breached the main research lab and were gathering hostages. They wore mismatched armor and carried weapons from at least 6 different planetary systems. Pirates, definitely. Probably hoping to steal research data or hold scientists for ransom. They had not counted on what came through the door next. Olivia moved with purpose, her hand signals directing the Ravagers into flanking positions. The pirates noticed the movement too late. By the time they turned toward the threat, the Ravagers were already in position, creating a perfect tactical perimeter. "Release the hostages," Olivia said, her voice carrying across the lab with surprising authority. "You are surrounded and outmatched. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to Coalition law." One of the pirates, apparently the leader based on his slightly better armor, laughed. "Surrounded? By what? A little human and some oversized pets? I think not." Olivia sighed. "I really hoped you would be reasonable." "All right then. Alpha formation. Non-lethal containment." What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for years to come. The Ravagers moved as a single unit, their training evident in every coordinated step. They did not attack with wild aggression. They executed precise, controlled strikes that disarmed pirates without causing fatal injuries. Weapons clattered to the floor. Pirates found themselves pinned by massive paws or held in place by careful jaws that threatened but did not tear. In under 90 seconds, all hostile combatants were neutralized and restrained. The hostages were freed without a single injury. The scarred Ravager, the pack leader, stood guard over the pile of confiscated weapons, while the others maintained watch on the subdued pirates. Olivia walked through the aftermath calmly, checking on the hostages and ensuring none of the Ravagers had been injured. She looked entirely unbothered by what had just occurred, like this was simply another day at work. Rendax stood in the doorway, his expression cycling through disbelief, admiration, and what might have been existential confusion. "That was the most efficient combat operation I have witnessed in 20 years of service," he said into his communicator, apparently forgetting he was on an open channel. "The human trained them for 3 days. 3 days! We have been training soldiers for months to achieve half that level of coordination." Valth watched from his office, the security feed still displaying the scene. The pirates were being secured by arriving security forces. The hostages were being escorted to safety. The Ravagers remained in perfect formation, waiting for their next command from Olivia. "Commander," Olivia said, looking directly at the security camera, "mission accomplished. 0 casualties on our side. All hostiles contained. The Ravagers performed flawlessly. I believe this proves their value as operational assets, yes?" Valth had to laugh. He actually laughed, a sound that surprised even himself. "Yes, Dr. Grant. I believe you have made your point rather effectively." Later that evening, after the reports had been filed, the hostages debriefed, and the pirates transferred to proper detention facilities, Valth found Olivia in the Ravager containment zone. She was sitting with the pack, speaking to them in soft tones, checking each one for any signs of stress or injury. "You knew they would respond that way," Valth said, entering the zone without fear now. "After today, it seemed silly to be afraid. From the beginning. You knew these creatures were not dangerous by nature. They were just treated poorly." Olivia smiled. "Most aggression comes from fear or frustration, Commander. Remove those factors, provide structure and purpose, and you find that most beings simply want to belong to something meaningful. Humans learned this a long time ago with our own animals. Respect and trust create better results than fear and punishment." "Your species continues to surprise us," Valth admitted. "We have been in space for thousands of years, and yet you arrive with such simple wisdom that changes everything we thought we knew." "Not wisdom," Olivia corrected gently. "Just a different perspective. You saw weapons. I saw potential partners. Neither view was wrong, but mine was more useful in this context." The scarred Ravager approached Valth slowly, sniffing cautiously. Valth remained still, remembering Olivia's lessons about calm presence and clear intent. The creature rumbled softly, and then, to Valth's complete shock, lowered its massive head and allowed him to touch it. "Well," Valth said, his voice filled with wonder, "I suppose I should start learning your methods, Dr. Grant." "Just Olivia is fine," she said, grinning. "And yes, I think that would be excellent. After all, you have 16 other containment zones with supposedly unmanageable creatures. Seems like we have a lot of work ahead of us." Valth groaned, but he was smiling. Humans. They arrived, turned your entire worldview upside down, proved that your impossible problems had simple solutions, and then cheerfully informed you that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was never going to be the same. And perhaps, Valth thought, as he watched 9 Ravager Hounds settle down for the evening with complete contentment, that was not such a terrible thing after all. The human had been sent to calm the beasts. Instead, she had taught them to salute, fight with honor, and most importantly, to trust. If that was what humanity brought to the Coalition, then the future was going to be very interesting indeed.